and welcome back to another episode. Well, not an episode, just back to another video on the channel. Today we're doing a how-to video, and it's a very cool video. It's very exciting for me because we're doing it on the drift bucket, and essentially this is going to be a how-to get your car ready for drifting video, because it's time to get my car ready for drifting. And I figured it would be really cool to just sort of help you guys make like a little bit of a checklist. You know, it's a lot of pages on Instagram posts like you need to do a nut and bolt check. They don't say which nuts and which bolts. So Dan is here today. He's going to help me. Yeah, we're going to put together a bit of a list for you guys and show you all the things that you need to do to make sure your car is ready for drifting, that it'll survive the session, and that you won't get kicked off the track for something stupid. So
50 skids minimum.
Yeah, there we go. Let's get started. You don't necessarily need a lift. We're really privileged and lucky that we do have a lift. Well, I'm very happy because Dan is out here and he's helping me today. But I'm going to take you around the car a little bit. Let me go get a light so you can actually see what I'm talking about when I talk about it. But we're also going to be modifying the car a little bit. We're putting an exhaust on because although locally we don't necessarily have many problems like that, and also, you know, turbo cars are a lot quieter generally than NA cars when they're straight pipe, but I am currently running an open downpipe and it's ridiculously loud, and I do know that certain tracks are a lot stricter with that. They have noise regulations because of where they're situated, and if your exhaust is too loud, you get banned from the track immediately, and that's not fun. You don't want to rock up, your car's perfect and it's just too loud. I just drove here, so unfortunately we have to wait a little bit for this bad boy to cool down. But whilst we're doing that, Dan's going to take us through the bolt check, because I mean, I've done this before, but I've never really done it like for drifting. And this man right here,
not very complicated,
pro drifter, and he knows how to like.
Definitely not a pro.
Where would you start? Start at the back, work to the front?
Look, basically number one golden rule is obviously always check wheel nuts. That's like a no-brainer. That's the first and last thing you
make sure these bad boys are on.
Yeah, first and last thing you do before you go in or out or do anything on the racetrack is wheel bolts. In terms of bolt check, you'd start basically either at the front or the rear. You pick one, it doesn't really matter. You'd basically just work through all your suspension bolts. So you've got your bolts and nuts. You would then check every single nut and mark it with the Tipex basically. So you'd mark it from the thread or on the chassis to the nut. And then that would give you an indication when you come off the track and you do your next bolt check at your next event. If it's moved, then you know either you had an accident or something got knocked or it came loose. So that's the quickest way.
That's actually a really cool tip. Like I didn't know about this whole Tipex thing. That's actually quite cool.
Yeah, so we'd mark all of that. We'd mark all these locking plates here on the coilovers. We'd mark all
so basically anything with thread that can move. Yeah,
anything that can be tightened or loosened, you'd mark. This is not so necessary, anti-roll bars, but because of vibration, and I mean the cars are 20 years old, you know, most of the nuts and bolts have never been touched in that time.
Yeah.
So it's better to just nip everything. So you'd start on the suspension. You'd go through every suspension bolt. On the MX-5 there's quite a lot. On most cars there'll only be about 4 or 5 because you've got double arms on the MX-5. From there you'd go to your diff and your cross bracing if you have. Most cars don't have this, but yeah, you then check your diff bolts, you check your subframe bolts. Basically, yeah, you like just go over everything with a power bar. You don't really need a torque wrench, but it's good to have one. From there you check your prop shaft bolts and you would mark them as well, because obviously this thing and this thing is probably doing the most work besides the engine. So you check those, and then yeah, you'd work your way forward. You can see like this has taken a knock at some point, so it's actually bent slightly, but you know the bolts are still there. As long as you torque them and nothing moves, then that's fine. And then yeah, you'd make your way forward. Most cars will have a gearbox cross brace here. You would then check your cross brace bolts and obviously check for leaks. That's another thing, a bolt check that you do. You check all your clutch hydraulic system, your gearbox, your diff. If you do spot any leaks, obviously try and fix them. If it's like a slight sweat like this, you just clean it and keep an eye on it. I mean, you know, the right thing to do is to fix it, but it's not a big deal. Check your fluid levels. Yeah, that's kind of because obviously if it is leaking, even if it's sweating over time, it will be low. You'd want to top it up. All right. Yeah, and then from there, gearbox stuff is not super necessary, or balancing bolts.
You guys can see it's super black on this side because we're running open down pipe, but we're here to fix that today. So
yeah, we'll obviously if you are having a full exhaust, then you'll check all your hangers, make sure none of your your rubber hooks are worn out or anything like that. Then coming to the front, you check your main front subframe bolts. You check your engine mountings to make sure they're not torn or anything on each side here. Then from there, you start to check your front suspension arm, same as the rear. Check all the nuts and bolts, mark everything with Tipex. Then you basically...
Same thing with brakes? Like all these bolts and
yeah,
things
brakes.
on brakes?
Also, brakes you'd notice if they come loose, but yeah, you do your caliper mounting bolts and then you do your actual caliper bolts. On your 4-pot Brembos, they'll be from the top, so you'll have to take your wheels off.
Alright.
Then you'd mark your front coilovers as well. And then, yeah, from there you just check if you don't have a chassis guard plate or anything, you check all your boost pipe clamps, make sure none of your boost pipes and your oil cooler lines are loose.
Alright.
And yeah, water lines also, if one of these clamps are loose, it would shoot this pipe off straight away.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just inspect all your lines, make sure nothing's leaking, inspect your engine for leaks, inspect your turbo drain and your turbo feed for leaks, and yeah, that would be about it, eh?
That's actually pretty simple. I thought there was a lot more to that.
Yeah, look,
but I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have like at least 50 to check.
Yeah,
or
look,
like 50 to 100 bolts.
Yeah,
like.
if you do it, look, if you do it properly the first time and you mark everything, it's going to take you like an hour or so. Also, if you're lying on the ground, it'll probably take you much longer. But once it's all marked up, then you can basically use that as a reference. So next time you do the checks, if the line hasn't, if the Tipex line sort of hasn't moved, then you can take it as, okay,
it's safe. Yeah, check it for next time. Like, all right, cool. Well, that's a great start. Shall we build an exhaust for this thing?
Yeah,
dude?
we've got it exhaust to build, so let's get that.
And actually, I've spotted one or two things here. Now that we've actually done this check, I see we've got a water leak up top there. Looks very slow, but you see there.
Yeah, that's also like vibration. That could be old, but see stuff like that.
Yeah, it's something you spot. And yeah, I've also spotted that we've got a missing gearbox bolt. Like,
yeah, I think this is stripped. That's why it was left out.
We don't tell people that. We could just say that we...
Yeah,
but I mean, for the rest, things are looking pretty good over here.
Yeah.
I mean, you did build the car, so there's like, you do kind of know what it looks like.
Yeah,
and
nothing looks new.
I noticed that one of my radiator mounts, like, okay, I've already fixed it off camera, but it was kind of getting a little bit loose, like this was lifting up. And it wasn't necessarily a problem, but I'd rather fix it now. And that's kind of like, I guess that's kind of part of your track prep, and that's what we're basically going to get into next. Dan's just busy extending the exhaust and putting the V-band and all that stuff on there. But essentially, it's stuff like this that is eventually going to become a problem. It might not be a problem right now, but fix it now, because when you head to the track, that's where your car is going to be put to the test. And if something's going to go wrong, that's where it's going to happen. You want to minimize the amount of stuff that can break, because at the end of the day, you might be driving fine, but something might give in, and that can cause you to then go off track, which is never a nice thing. Do you think we should heat wrap this? Yo, look at these colors, bro.
Yeah, we must.
Heat wrap.
No question.
Donnie's not here, so I can go into the shop and just like, don't tell him. Let's have a look here. Ooh, we've got some titanium heat wrap. Okay, I think he's definitely got some in stock. I'm gonna go and check here and see if there's anything available. Shout out to you, Donnie. I love you, bro. Thank you for sponsoring the build. Perks of having mates that own part shops. We've got some titanium wrap and a titanium blanket. I'm very happy. Get some heat management down. This is not part of the tutorial. This is not part of the how-to, but I think it goes without saying that, like, any track car, anything that's going to be doing hard work, like, heat management is key to a long-lasting race car. Don't burn your car out. Just put a little bit of wrap on it. You'll be good to go.
It's not expensive.
It's not expensive. Especially when you have friends you can just take some from. Like,
it's literally, I think they're like 200 rand or something.
Yeah, I think there's like 180.
Yeah, they
honestly, guys, the price of a Big Mac, you can protect your car from catching fire. It's a no-brainer. This is the little box we're going to be putting on. It's not really a box. It's more of a resonator. But before we get into that, Dan's going to quickly wrap the downpipe. Yeah. And you want to give us a little tutorial on how to wrap a pipe?
Yeah, you can put it on dry, but I would recommend always soaking it first. It helps for it to stick to itself, and it just makes things a lot easier.
You don't get the little fibers and things.
Yeah,
like
and then obviously always wear gloves when you do this. Even when you work with a heat blanket, it's the same things. It's just obviously tighter woven into the shapes, but always wear gloves when you're busy with it.
I did this without gloves when I did it, and I did the entire spider manifold of the old turbo, and for the rest of that week, like I was itchy, and it wasn't just my hands, it was my arms, it was my neck. It's like basically every part of my body that was exposed was just, and that was glass fiber. I did make it wet. Like it all worked out perfectly, but man, I was itching. And although this is titanium, same thing applies. It's still very thin fibers.
You basically start on one end, then you want to wrap it over itself at least once or twice, as tight as you can get it. So I normally go, so start somewhere and go forward. You don't want to go too close to the flange, because like often
Bolts,
with flanges you've got bolts and stuff, so you don't want to really be in anything's way. And then yeah, now you see, because it's wet, it sticks to itself.
Yeah,
much nicer.
and it helps when you've got proper big guns.
Yeah, look, this always makes a mess as well.
Yeah, so be prepared for that.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to mop afterwards, but
Yeah.
yeah, and then you just go sort of half the length of this thing. You just go like half, if that makes sense.
Sick.
Half the width down, and then you just pull him tight as you go.
Keep it tight as you go. And essentially what this helps do, like everyone thinks it reduces heat, it doesn't. It keeps the heat inside the pipe, but because there's constant gas flow in the pipe, it gets it out. So essentially, instead of radiating heat off the pipe into the engine bay, thus heat soaking everything around it, you're keeping it inside the pipe and getting it out the back of the car and away from the car. And yeah, that's essentially how this is supposed to work. And well, there you have it. Very nicely done. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, nice and tight. And then it's just, you do get the metal tight.
I was just gonna say,
yeah,
this is a lot easier, and I've actually got a lot more confidence in this, because those other, like, they're basically cable ties, they're metal cable ties, and you like tighten them with like a pliers. But as soon as they move and you tighten it, like that's it. There's no redoing them. So you can't shift them if you put them on a little bit skew.
Yeah,
and I have, and I have in my experience, you know, I've tightened them, gone for a run, the exhaust glows red, and then they just pop off. You know, they just literally, quite literally, they melt off.
Not Ayoba.
Not Ayoba. So guys, I know this is a bit of a how-to video, but just a quick shout out to Dan for being an absolute legend. He's welded up this entire exhaust in the time that I've managed to order pizza. We are back, it's day 2. Unfortunately, we couldn't finish the video yesterday because we completed the entire exhaust, but it took a little bit longer than what we expected, because Dan did an absolutely phenomenal job. Yeah, spoiler alert, it sounds amazing, but I'll show you guys. Well, you obviously saw the skid in the beginning of the video, so you know what it sounds like, but it's looking great. There's just 1 or 2 things that I did off camera that you guys didn't see. I got the filter sorted, so that's on there now. We put the turbo blanket on. We've spotted a leak though on the turbo flange, which we're gonna have to fix. Do you want to run us through what all we need to check to make sure that this is perfect for 50 cents or more?
Yeah, so when you're going to the track, obviously you've done your bolt check already underneath the car, you know everything's tight. Main thing is obviously always torque your wheels. Sort of for cars with like Japanese cars that have nuts, you're normally between 110 and 125 newtons, depending on what material nut you have. Cars with wheel bolts is normally like 120 up to 140, depending if it's, you know, SUV or something. And yeah, then you start basically just with fluid. So you check coolant, make sure your coolant in your radiator is actually full. Don't just check the bottle, because a lot of people do that. And meantime,
can you actually run coolant on a track though? Should we actually do water just for the session?
Yeah, look at the like street car track days. Obviously, you know, it's road legal cars, so most people will have coolant in their cars.
Yeah.
The track does ask you not to use coolant if it's a full race car, but at the end of the day, they can't check every single car, and they can't make people change it out at the track. So
yeah,
depending on your track rules, obviously. So you'd start with coolant, check the radiator, make sure your overflow bottle is also full if you have one. From there, check oil. That's probably the second most important thing. You know, make sure your belts, you don't want to go to the track with a loose alternator belt or loose power steering, because if your alternator doesn't charge, you run rich, the car will misfire, end your day. And it'll take you a while to figure that out if you don't know what you're looking for. Power steering, you don't want to lose power steering at 100 and something k's an hour through.
That's gonna hurt, yeah.
Yeah. So
and with oil, it's like check the level, but also check the quality, like check the health of the oil.
Yeah, look, if your oil's like very dark or very black, or you can smell fuel in your oil, like a faint hint of fuel, rather change it before you go to the track.
And then stuff like this is a no-no, guys. So like I've been running like this for quite a while, and look, it's been fine, it's not a problem, but when we actually go and drift and we send it, and obviously you've got a lot of G-forces and things going on here, I have bought the cables, the plugs for this, so we're going to be wiring that in. That's a big one. That will probably get you failed at most places. Like even the dyno shop said, look, because I know them personally, they did me a favor, but normally they don't even tune cars that come around like this. You have to have plugs. It needs to be, even if you make up your own plugs like these ones over here, I don't know if you can see them that well, but essentially,
injector plugs.
Yeah, these are proper injector plugs, and they've been made nicely. But this is a no-no. So you know, from an electrical perspective, that's a big one. You don't want to have any issues electrically. So just do a once over. You know, just check all your mountings and your fittings and stuff. Even if you have like loose electrical wiring like this, which is fine. You know, maybe put a cable tie in there. Maybe just make sure that you know it's not going to move around too much on the day.
Yeah, also, most engines don't have any wiring on the hot side of the motor. The engineers try and keep it to the cold side. But obviously with conversions and turbocharging and stuff like that, things tend to be moved around.
Yeah.
So if you do have any wiring running on the hot side of the motor, make sure it's covered, make sure it's kept far away from turbo. And
same thing goes for brake lines, guys. Massive one is brake lines. Like I have a line over here, which is pretty close to my wastegate, and I've heat wrapped it simply because if your brake line gets too hot and your brake fluid boils, you've got air bubbles in there, you lose your brakes. That's it. It's game over. Like it doesn't matter if you're even going straight. Like you're in trouble with no brakes. I think then like next priority would just be like boost piping. Any kind of vacuum lines, any boost pipes that you have from the top side. We've obviously checked this from the bottom, so we've checked all the water pipes and
clamps,
stuff.
Make sure like you haven't got a rusted clamp or something.
Blow off valve also quite important. You know, you don't want to be putting extra stress on the turbo.
Yeah, it's also if something's loose there and it pops off, you lose boost. You're gonna waste time on your track day, and instead of driving, you'll be fixing. And the whole point of this is to not encounter problems. You always have failures at the track. It does happen. You're pushing your car to its limits, but you obviously want to prevent as much as you can before you get there.
So yeah, guys, this is like both from a safety perspective, from a how-to perspective, and simply just like, it's expensive to get track time, and you want to sort out all these kind of issues, not only for your own safety and for your enjoyment at the track, but also for the safety of others, especially when it's like a crowded day and you've got multiple people on track. If you break down on the track, you're costing everybody else their track time. And although drift homies are normally very chilled, like, you don't want to leave a sour taste in the mouth by taking 20 minutes away from someone else's track time. Like that's just not a cool thing to do, especially when it's something that you can prevent here at home or in your workshop or garage. You can make sure that that's something you don't do.
Yeah, and then from there, basically, if you've checked your oil, checked your belts, a good thing to do would be to bleed your clutch, your hydraulic clutch fluid, your hydraulic system on the clutch. Just because that also encounters a lot of heat because the pipe runs next to the gearbox and the engine. So just have that fresh, and then obviously if you've got the time and a little bit of extra money and a little bit of extra help because you need someone to pump, bleed the brakes as well. It'll make that much more of a difference on track, especially if you've been to the track already and you've heat cycled your brakes and you felt the pedal go spongy. That's already, you would have to change the fluid after that.
All right, cool.
It's overheated. It'll still work for the road, but the moment you're on the track situation again, its boiling point becomes much lower. So it tarnishes pretty quickly, is what you're saying. Yeah,
like
basically,
one and done kind of thing.
Yeah, especially for a road car, using normal dot 4 fluid. It's not racing fluid. So, if you've cooked it once, rather replace it. Then at least you've got peace of mind and it's fresh as well. And while you're down there, you also you get a chance to have a look at the suspension. So you do everything together.
And then I think like another thing that goes without saying, like my battery is in the boot. We can't really show it here now, but the whole point is to make sure that it needs to be clamped properly. Your battery, you can't have your battery moving around. A safety thing, but also you will get kicked off the track. That's the first thing that they go through in scrutineering. Even when we were at for Santa Crawl, we were checking each other's cars just to make sure that the safety aspect is there. And a massive one is the battery. If your battery is not tied down, you won't be allowed drag racing. You won't be allowed on the track. You won't be allowed drifting. It's a common thing. And I mean, what? We're not only looking out for the car and for electric issues, but like fire. You know?
Yeah, look, if you have an accident or you roll and you have a short circuit, it will catch itself alight.
Yeah,
if the battery shorts, it can explode. That causes other problems.
So just like a whole list of problems where you can just tie down your battery and you're avoiding a lot of stuff that could be really painful and really expensive.
Yeah, so yeah. And if you've done all of that, you're basically sort of done with the engine. Obviously, if you have any leaks, rectify them before you go to the track because they will stop you.
Yeah.
From there, it would be, most road cars won't have to do this, but check your seat if you've changed. We put in a bucket seat.
Yeah.
Check all your bolts, make sure nothing's got play.
Oh yeah, that's actually like a very good point. Like check everything. Like if you've got harnesses like what I do, excuse my camping seat over there. It's like I have a really, yeah, it's kind of hard, so I just put an extra pillow there. But like, and if you have quick release steering wheels and adapters and hub adapters and stuff, double check the stuff. You know, it's gonna take you 5 minutes at home, whereas it could take you an hour at the track, or it could cost you the car. If your steering wheel comes off, we've all seen those videos. There's multiple viral videos out there where guys, the steering just comes off and they go straight into the wall, and that's it. That's your day's ruined and your car's ruined. And that's something that, you know, it's really, the amount of time that you're putting in here could save you so much money in the long run. I see you at the back here. Anything else?
Well, yeah, basically from there, guys with bolt-in roll cages, make sure they're tight. The bolts do come loose over time, so it's something you want to check. If the track wants to be strict, they will stop you.
Yeah.
I would say the next thing to do is obviously brake lights. You don't want the guy behind you running.
Oh, okay, well that's actually, I didn't even think of that. So lighting.
The track should check your lights. At least just your brake lights. The guys, you know, lights in front don't really matter on track, but lights at the back is really important.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, if you're in drifting tandem, you know, when the guy's left foot brake, you do pick it up, so you know the car is slowing down.
100%. And then lastly, tire pressures. That's like an important. People, you know, like that. Tire pressure plays such a massive role in drifting. Like it determines how much grip you've got, how much like sidewall flex that you have. You know, I mean, suspension is one thing. We're checking the suspension, but like the tire is a massive part of the suspension. It plays such a huge role, not only the compound, but the actual pressure that you're running. So double check that.
If you've checked everything, you can just focus on driving. And if you do hear a new noise or something's come loose, you'll pick it up straight away because the car won't be the same as it was.
There we go. There we go.
That's how this all works together and how you keep a good handle on your car.
Guys, I think we've covered it pretty extensively, and what I'll do is I'll put the list in the description. So we'll just put like a little list there, where to start from, where to end. Just make sure that you've covered all those things. If it's your first time, obviously, you know, tips and tricks like the Tipex thing. You know, if it's your second time doing a bolt check or something like that, you can cut that list down a little bit. But we'll put it in the description. You can copy it, print it out, put it somewhere in your cubby hole, something that's nice and easy to remember. I'll also include all the different types of fluids and things that you can take with to the track, and obviously the kind of tools that you'll need. So, and it's pretty basic. You could have it all in a toolbox. You don't need a workshop and a lift. It's kind of nice. It can save time. But at the end of the day, this is all something that you could do in the backyard with hand tools. You know, there's nothing.
I mean, jack and trestles is good enough. You don't need everything to jack and top.
I mean, at the end of the day, we built an exhaust now. So like we used a lot of tools that you wouldn't necessarily need if you already had one. And yeah, I think that the only thing left to do is to go and test it. Because I mean, we've done the checks now. Now we need to see if it skids.
Everything's in order now. The toss is on now. We can go play around.
My favorite part. So obviously guys, easiest thing to do before you go to the track is actually just test your car for a skid, eh? Like, it's the quickest way to find out if there's something wrong. It didn't do that before the filter. Like,
it's pretty awesome. Is this thing still recording, eh? You can hear when it opens up.
Seems all good. Yeah. Annoy the neighbors. I think it works.
Very nice. Let the steering wheel come back too much.
Okay.
That's why you're doing this to try and release it less.
Okay.
Half a lesson.
Yeah, this is like a cuck circle.
Yeah, this is not the best. This is where Jaden also come.
It's just the blanket that's smoking, that's all good. I was a little bit worried there for a second, we saw quite a bit of smoke. brand new turbo blanket, so that's all it is. Hopefully that was a relatively comprehensive guide on what to do to get your drift car ready, or to get your car ready for drifting. Doesn't matter if it's a street car or a track car. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll leave all the details down in the description. I'll put in all the tools that we used, all the fluids that we used, just to give you like a bit of a comprehensive guide, something you can just copy and paste, print it out on a piece of paper, put it in your cubby hole. I learned quite a bit. There were a couple of tips and tricks that I didn't even know about, like the Tipex thing. That was actually pretty clever, so shout out to Dan for that one. And shout out to you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop us with a like. We really appreciate that. It makes YouTube's algorithm happy. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. If you have, you're awesome. Continue being awesome, and I will see you in the next video.